What is up, guys? Danny back again from the Couch Gnomes, and I have a brand new episode of Nomenclature for you today. Now, before we get started with the video itself, I just kind of want to catch you guys up on why this series has been so slow lately. Ever since we moved into the new house, things have been non-stop. I started a new job right out of the gate, and bringing consistent content to the channel is something I really strive for. And doing something like a Let's Play where I can just sit down, record the gameplay, pop it in Premiere, and go is a lot simpler than doing something like Nomenclature where I gotta record the gameplay, I gotta record my dialogue, my conversation, I gotta, edit it all together, I gotta put, it's a lot that goes into making Nomenclature. So I've really fallen behind on getting this out as often as I would like them to be. But I'm hoping with this coming year that's really gonna change. We'll see. I'll try and get my stuff together, I promise. But now back to what this video is really about. 2019 has been an extraordinary year for games. But there are so many amazing games that came out this year, it was really difficult for me to narrow it down to just 10. But as always for this type of video, we can't just start off with the top 10. No. That would be far too easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with honorable mentions. These are the games that I played this year that I absolutely love, but they just didn't fit the top 10 placement for me. And if you ever get the opportunity to play these games, I think it's going to be a great use of your time. So, let's get into it. Honorable mentions. Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. Apex Legends. Concrete Genie. Songbird Symphony. The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. Days Gone. Untitled Goose Game. Wargroove. Ape Out. Call of Duty: Modern Warfare.
There is
After Party.
Pathless woods, friends. Know what that means?
Get the fuck out.
Get the fuck out of here, yes.
Forager. Control. Killer Queen Black. Resident Evil 2. Now, all these games played a big part in keeping me entertained throughout 2019, so it was really tough for me to see some of them not make my personal top 10. But now the list you're about to see are the games that had the most monumental impact on me this year. So without further ado, my top 10 games of 2019. Number 10, Katana Zero. Katana Zero is a 2D action platformer that's fast-paced, challenging, and has exciting moment-to-moment gameplay. The game takes place in New Mecca, a rundown city beaming with neon colors. It really screams cyberpunk noir. You'll traverse the world as the Dragon, a test subject for a new drug called Kronos. You'll go from building to building, room to room, assassinating hordes of gangster grunts with your sword in order to reach your contract kill. But you have to take out everyone in the room without being hit. There's no health bar, no healing items, nothing. Just one tap and you're done. So you need to go into each level analyzing every enemy, what weapons are around them, and the shortest and most progressive path to take. But to tip the odds in your favor just a little bit, you'll have time on your side. The drug you've been injected with allows you to slow down time and predict incoming enemy attacks. And once you complete the level, you get to see a replay of your killing spree, basically showing you that every attempt you failed was you running the numbers in your head and realizing that path would get you killed. Yeah, Kronos is a crazy drug. The city of New Mecca is filled with incredible characters, some funny, some badass, and some that really had me rethinking about some of my life choices. And the storytelling in Katana Zero is immensely compelling. It continued to make me grow closer and closer to the protagonist and really make me feel for his disturbing past. And the dialogue system in this game is super innovative. You can interrupt a person mid-conversation, which will solicit a unique response out of them, compared to what you'd read if you allowed them to actually finish talking. This mechanic will also come into play where you're confronting your assassination targets. DJ Electrohead is a target you're told not to speak to, just kill. So you can either slaughter him by the edge of your katana, or you can allow him to live long enough to make a damning confession to you and disobey your direct orders. Also, a fun little detail I love is that the dragon starts off each level by putting in his earbuds to keep him laser focused on the mission. It's sort of like Baby Driver, just with a sword. And no cars. Okay, so really it's not like Baby Driver at all. I also want to point out that Katana Zero is the only indie game on my list this year, which, honest to God, is baffling to me. There were so many awesome indie games this year, and most of them were listed in my honorable mentions. Now, on to number 9 on my list. Let's talk about Kingdom Hearts 3. So, I know this game got a bunch of crap for not being as good as a sequel that took 17 years to make should have been, but as someone who's a Disney fan far more than a Kingdom Hearts fan, this game rocked my socks. I couldn't care less about Sora, Riku, or Kairi, but saving Heartless Baymax was my primary concern. Oh, but I do care a lot about Aqua, because, well, damn son, like look, she's a snack and a half, you know? So, growing up playing Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, I always thought I just couldn't quite grasp the story because I was too young. But after years of careful study and rigorous examination, I just realized that the story of Kingdom Hearts is poopy doo-doo. I've always played Kingdom Hearts to see the individual stories of my favorite characters across the Disney universe, even the ones that are just retellings of the movie. Yes, Elsa, I've seen the Let It Go music video enough times to acknowledge the accuracy of your recreation. But let's be real for a second, because that song doesn't hold a candle to the 100 Acre Woods theme. Plus, it makes the minigame parts of the 100 Acre Wood a lot more bearable. Thank you, thank you. Yes, yeah, I'll be here all week, Yeah, tip your waitress, tip your waitress. The combat in Kingdom Hearts 3 is exactly as I expected it to be. Explosive and insane, in the best way possible. And I'm really glad they nailed this part, because with the taped together paper shreds we got for a story, Square Enix needed to help this game sell. Every Disney universe in Kingdom Hearts 3 has its own vast array of Heartless to fight, all matching up with the theme of the particular world. From ice dragons in Arendelle, to giant mechs in the toy box. And as far as your repertoire of weaponry, there's always something attractive to keep your attention. Whether it's various summons, Keyblade ultimates, or Disneyland attractions popping up out of the ground without certified park employees being there to operate them. But they never felt too invasive. They never made me stop and go, wait, what's going on? Well, except the part where Sora's nobody looks like Roxas, but Roxas is Sora's Heartless? Or is nobody? Well, then there's that Ventus guy, or was it Vanitas? Honestly, I have no clue. Not a clue. I absolutely adore being able to play through different Disney franchises and pick up brand new Keyblades at the end of each chapter, giving me new ways of increasing my effectiveness in battle. I would normally run with the Big Hero 6 Keyblade, the Pirates of the Caribbean Keyblade, and either the Monsters Inc. or Toy Story Keyblade at any given time. The only thing I really would have liked from Kingdom Hearts 3 was a few more worlds to explore. Like, I was hoping there were at least 1 or 2 more worlds they didn't show off in the trailers, but no. Every world was in a trailer. No Aladdin, no Lion King, no Nightmare Before Christmas, nothing. But I will never complain about Square and Disney bringing the newer franchises to shine the spotlight on them. Now before we keep going, let me just go grab a snack quick because I skipped breakfast this morning, so I'll be right back.
This might be a good spot to find some ingredients.
Number 8 is Rage 2. Now if you recall, I already did a nomenclature on Rage 2 earlier this year, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about all the details of it, but I want to make sure that it gets recognized for being in my top 10. If you want to hear everything I had to say about Rage, you can check out that video. But I mentioned in that episode how Rage 2 caught me by surprise and was one of my favorite games this year. I repeatedly found myself throughout the year saying, damn, I really want to play some more Rage. This game originally grabbed my attention with its Doom-like gameplay and Far Cry-like open world. Every mission or side quest felt like a fight for my life, with the dangerous world of Rage being filled with explosions, raiders, robots, trucks, drones, collectibles, and so much more. The main story was short and sweet, but the road to getting the Platinum Trophy gave me at least an extra 10 or 15 hours of additional fun. And now I have both the Terramania and the Rise of Ghost DLC to try and play eventually. Hopefully I can find the time to play it between now and March's 2020 flood of huge releases. Also, I got this really cool boomerang thing when I pre-ordered Rage 2. I never had a chance to throw it, so let's go give it a shot. Okay, here we go, ready? Damn it. So number 7 on my list is a unique case, because normally I wouldn't want to put a game on this list without finishing it. But I think I've played enough of this game to really kind of understand how I feel about it and where it deserves to be on this list. So number 7 on my list is Death Stranding. Death Stranding is artistic, it's obscure, it's innovative, it's not fun. I don't think Death Stranding is a fun game. The gameplay is basically a chore in and of itself. But I also don't think games in this day of age have to be fun. Hideo Kojima wants to tell a story here. The struggles of a postman in an awful world filled with extraterrestrial beings and a baby who can help you see them. Okay, so it's a weird story, but it's an interesting one nonetheless. Death Stranding at a base level is a journey. As Norman Reedus and his funky fetus, aka Sam Porter Bridges, you're tasked with traveling across a disconnected America and reuniting different colonies to the chiral network by delivering their packages, like precious metals and fresh pizza. Meanwhile, you're trying to avoid BTs, which are these invisible ghosty boys that are trapped somewhere between life and death and don't really like you very much. I like to think of the progression in this game like a young boy who has his own paper route and a deadline to meet, growing up and becoming the ultimate UPS delivery man. You start by doing everything on foot, climbing mountains and forging rivers to reach faraway locations. And eventually you get vehicles, cargo robots, and more equipment to make you the very best mailman you can be. But the coolest part of Death Stranding, however, is the multiplayer portion of the game. You aren't exploring the world with other porters directly, but as you progress and reconnect the network, you get to see equipment and structures of other players. You can end up stumbling across a collection of ladders that lead you up over a mountain instead of forcing you to walk around it. This could probably save you 10 to 15 minutes of travel time in some cases. Now, I will say that I was a really stingy mailman at first. I'd pick up every rope and ladder that I left just to make sure that I wasn't left hanging somewhere. So if you happen to hit a river without a bridge to cross, yeah, you can blame that one on me. Sorry. Aside from physical structures, players can also place warning signs alerting you to BTs, rain, enemy camps, and other hazards that you can avoid. Now to me, Death Stranding is not the type of game that you can just pick up and play for 20 minutes. This game's an investment. So I'm going to be playing for 8 to 10 hours on my day off. There's just so much traveling at such a slow pace that picking up for such a small amount of time just doesn't do anything for you. But having a game like this makes catching up my podcast and Netflix queue that much more possible. I genuinely wish I could have finished this game before this video came out, but it just came out at a bad time where there were other games I was more excited for, and those actually ranked higher on this list. Number 6 on my list is Far Cry New Dawn. Since 2012 and the release of Far Cry 3 on the 360, Far Cry has been a day one buy for me. The expansive worlds and aggressive wildlife is just so infatuating. Far Cry New Dawn is the continuation of Far Cry 5, where the town of Hope County was lost to a catastrophic explosion caused by God? I think. New Dawn picks up 17 years after the explosion, and we're now seeing the new lives of all of our favorite characters from 5, trying to survive this nuclear wasteland, while dealing with the tyranny of the twins, Mickey and Lou, and their army of highwaymen, who most of the characters in this game pronounce as highwomen. First off, the world of New Dawn is stunning. I constantly found myself just stopping in the middle of nowhere to pan around and take it all in. But aside from the beauty, the game throws you right into the fray. Right after I finished the tutorial, I set out to find my first mission, and I was attacked by a black bear. Well, a black, yellow, and pink bear. I had to jump onto a roof and smack the bear from afar, because I had no weapons yet. But luckily a group of guys passed by and helped me kill the bear. Then they wanted to trade with me after a long fought battle.
Come to trade, ma'am?
Hunting animals has always been my favorite part of Far Cry. There are so many exotic species, both docile and ferocious. And what makes these animals so cool is that they're all radiated. So there are white deer with these pink antlers, and bison with moss growing out of their backs. And to take down these vicious creatures, you need the best weapons you can scrounge up. And I really mean it when I say scrounge up. Every weapon in New Dawn is a makeshift weapon, made from trash, scrap metal, used cans, or whatever else you can find lying around. What I really like about this though, is that it really sends home how much these townspeople are struggling. How their lives have been uprooted and now they're severely lacking supplies and resources, and have to work solely with what they have. Except this one girl that just seems to sit around and play the damn guitar all day. Listen honey, I like music as much as the next guy, but we got a war going on. Well, at least we got a whole squad of guns for hire to pick up the slack. Characters like Carmina Rye, Nana, Horatio, and Timber the dog. That's right, Timber. Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? That's right. Lick my hand to realign my spine. Good dog. Ubisoft does an excellent job of making sure Hope County feels entirely different, but still feels familiar to the world that we knew from the year prior, leaving references to characters, events, and locations of a past life. And yeah, this may feel like one of those games that was supposed to be DLC that just grew too big and became its own installment, and they released it at a discounted price. Well, yeah, that's exactly what it is. But I love this game regardless. Now on to number 5 of my list, which is Mario. Luigi's Mansion 3 was one of the games for my most anticipated games of 2019 video, and it definitely didn't let me down. Once again, Luigi wins some random contest to take his friends to a fancy hotel getaway. And while cuddling up for a good night's sleep, the hotel owner, King Boo, starts ripping everyone from their beds and locking them away in picture frames for all eternity. And it's up to Luigi and his poltergust to save the gang. Traversing the haunted hotel of King Boo was one of the most enjoyable gaming experiences I had on the Switch this year. The different types of basic level ghosts aren't particularly diverse. When you break down all the boss ghosts, you're in for a real party. From maids to mechanics, from royal knights to swimming instructors, Nintendo nailed it with this one. After streaming through Luigi's Mansion on GameCube a year ago, I found myself far more excited for this game than I think I would have been if I hadn't replayed it. But I realized then that the repetitiveness of the original game wasn't as fun as I remember it being. But the constant changes in environment on each level of Luigi's Mansion 3 just kept the game fresh. Another major improvement from the former games is the new methods of busting ghosts. There's the plunger launcher to grab ghosts from afar, the ghost slam to thrash ghosts all around, and Gooigi, the best slime sidekick I've ever had. The cinematics were so comedic and charming that I was almost always grinning from ear to ear. I think this game is perfect for all ages, especially for kids. It's funny, goofy, and all around family friendly. Oh my god, did Toad just die? Next game, quickly! Holy crap, and a ham sandwich, a good Star Wars game from EA? How'd they do it? That explains it. Now, I've never been a big Star Wars guy. I saw the first 6 movies leading up to episode 7 with my roommates back in college, and it wasn't really because I wanted to, it was more so of they're on, so why not? However, I've always thought the lightsaber was one of the coolest fantasy weapons of all time. Seriously, how many of us still take the empty Christmas wrapper tube and swing it around making sounds? In Jedi Fallen Order, you play as Cal Kestis, a young Jedi who's trying to regain his memories along with his Jedi skills. Along the way, you meet this incredible cast of characters that'll help you explore the galaxy and pick up lightsaber upgrades, force abilities, and even some plants for your terrarium. Less than 5 minutes into the campaign, I started climbing a wall of vines, and my inner Uncharted fan exploded with joy as I felt the similarities in the gameplay. And then the combat hit, and it felt so similar to Dark Souls, yet so different. I've never been a big fan of the Souls-like games, but with that type of gameplay with a Star Wars wrapping around it, it instantly clicked the right buttons for me, and I enjoyed it right out of the gate. The combat just allows for so many different ways to deflect, slash, cut, crush, throw, and force your way through the enemy soldiers. Each planet throughout the galaxy is breathtaking and magnificent in its own right. There's just enough planets to add a variety of environments to explore, but few enough to keep it from becoming too overwhelming. While journeying across every one of these planets, you meet a plethora of fascinating animals and insects. But watch out for those stupid rats that jump out of the ground. Hate those damn things. But you also find yourself fighting competent stormtroopers. Well, those are 2 words I never thought I'd say together.
Take over.
But as well trained as these troopers are, they're nothing compared to the bosses you'll fight on each planet. None of these are particularly easy, and you'll most likely have to run these fights a handful of times before you get the attack cues and the movements down. And each time they beat you, they steal your XP and force energy, so you always want to run back in and get the first shot as soon as possible to regain your lost experience. And after taking out some of these bosses upwards of 10-15 times, finally taking out that last bit of their health bar feels so empowering. But I'd be remiss if I didn't point out how much I love the exposition of Cal's story. Seeing his dramatic backstory with the relationship between him and his Jedi Master, as well as him progressing even further into a more powerful Force wielder with the help of his faithful crew and his little shoulder buddy BD-1, my new favorite droid in the Star Wars universe. Sorry BB-8, I still love you, you're not BD. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order got me genuinely interested in the Star Wars universe. So much so that as of recording this, I'm on episode 4 of The Mandalorian. And damn, Mando is so cool. I hope he gets his own game soon. And don't even get me started on that adorable little turd baby Yoda. I hope he gets his chicky tendies one day. Now number 3 on my list is actually 2 games. Pokemon Sword and Shield. After being my most anticipated game for this year, I knew Pokemon was going to place fairly high in my top 10. Now that's not something I think a lot of people would say, but this isn't their video, it's mine. So you get to listen to my opinion. A lot of people were upset because Pokemon Sword and Shield weren't this big leap forward for the franchise that they wanted. Just more Pokemon. And yeah, I'd love a huge overhaul of the mechanics of the game for something fresh. But I also love Pokemon. So this game was exactly what I needed it to be. Me traveling around the world as a preteen with a bunch of colorful balls filled with overpowered monsters that could easily kill me, but don't because friendship! But as traditional as this game seems to be, they made a huge change that made this game significantly better for me. And that's the removal of random encounters. Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee gave us a taste of what this would be like. And that taste got me overwhelmingly excited for the main course. There's no longer that mini heart attack of walking through grass and getting ambushed by a freaking rat. Now I get to decide if I want to fight the little rodent or just run around it and come back to it later. And just to list a few other things I really liked about Sword and Shield, full team XP for a less grinding experience, new Galarian forms and evolutions to make me love old Pokemon again, and gym variations to help me justify my choice of buying both games for the first time since 2002. Also, the cinematics in these games are pretty dope. They're nothing earth-shattering or groundbreaking, but they make me feel more attached to the NPCs in the Pokemon game than I've ever felt before. And then we've got the Wild Area, a gigantic space made up of different environments where you're able to catch a multitude of different Pokemon. From Abomasnow and the Giant Seat to Haxorus and Axew's Eye, there are so many hefty mons to capture and train. And within the Wild Area are max raid battles, where you get to team up with either 3 friends, random players, or lame-ass computer players because you weren't patient enough to wait 2 minutes for actual people to show up. Then you all get to work together to defeat the max raid Pokemon and all attempt to capture it once you've depleted its health entirely. Unless you try your best throughout the fight just to throw your Pokeball, have it shake 3 times, and the Pokemon escapes, because then there is literally nothing you can do at this point. And it's so frustrating because all I wanted was that damn Gigantamax Corviknight and I couldn't have it! Bro, I hate that part. Now, I do think fans are somewhat justified in the lack of a national dex. Yeah, that'd be a really cool thing to have for sure. And with Pokemon Sword and Shield being the first mainline games to not have it, it's certainly a huge change for people to adjust to. But leading up to the game, I realized the likelihood of me actually having a team that contained any older generation Pokemon is unlikely. I don't play competitively, so EVs, IVs mean absolutely nothing to me. I'm all in on the fun factor and the new Pokemon. And speaking of new Pokemon, I did everything in my power to avoid seeing any new Pokemon that weren't in official Nintendo trailers. Aside from the start of Final Evolutions because, damn it DJ, peer pressure sucks. But playing through Sword for the first time and seeing Pokemon like Squabit, Rookity, Nickit, and Chewtle for the first time ever, it was a phenomenal feeling that I can't put into words. I wish that I'd done this for every generation before, and I really hope to do it for every generation to come, because this made me feel something I never thought I would experience again towards a Pokemon game. The surprise and excitement of something brand new. Number 2 on my list is Borderlands 3. Oh shoot. Whew, I can't see in this mask. Over the last few years, I've had so many friends who've wanted to replay Borderlands 2 over and over and over and over again. And no offense, but old game is old. Now don't get me wrong, Borderlands 2 is a great game, but I had no desire to replay Borderlands 2 almost 5 or 6 years after it released. So I kept telling those friends, go ahead, play without me. Just give me a call when Borderlands 3 drops. And then finally, Randy Pitchford and the team at Gearbox revealed this sucker at a live stream event where they played a Garbo quality trailer 2 or 3 times and then ended up just watching it in HD 5 minutes after the fact. As a 24-year-old man with the heart and soul of an 8-year-old, Borderlands 3 hits the nail on the head for its sense of humor. It's got some of the cheesiest, corniest, just plain simple jokes that had me and my buddies dying of laughter. So I can say full-heartedly that Borderlands 3 is the best multiplayer experience I've had in a long time, probably since my 360 days of Black Ops 2 and Halo Reach. Borderlands 3 was so much more than the typical PvP run around and shoot other players type of game. Coming home from work, hopping into the world of Pandora, and staying up way past my bedtime to hang out and slaughter psychos with my boys Cameron and Jimmy just felt like those weekend-long Xbox Live sessions from way back when. We worked as a team, we made calls for each other, got legendary loot, destroyed huge bosses, and verbally went ding whenever we leveled up. This third venture into the Wastelands, at its core, is just more of the same, but fine-tuned and significantly more enjoyable than the previous installments. The 4 new Vault Hunters are arguably the weakest playable characters personality-wise, but Flak is without a doubt my favorite Vault Hunter ever. Now, I think the new Vault Hunters only feel so absent from the plot because important characters like Lilith, Maya, and Tannis take center stage in the story. Which is definitely not a complaint because these women were all badasses and I love getting to see more personality from them. But here's to Borderlands 4 having more Flak and Zane interactions. My favorite addition to Borderlands 3, however, has to be the updated loot drop system. Everyone can have their own drops now, making racing for legendary loot an option instead of a requirement. But honestly, we were probably giving each other loot more often than we expected to. Handing over loot to our buddies that had the proper class to fit the drops just felt like the right thing to do. Plus, there are so many freaking guns in this game, I'm sure we could all spare a few thousand firearms each. We even all platinumed the game together. After days of side quest grinding and finally defeating all 3 circles of slaughter, we accomplished the goal together. And that's probably a huge factor as to why I love this game so much. It wasn't a quick race to finish the campaign and roll credits. We went for trophies together, we experienced the story together, and we lived out our Borderlands 3 adventures together. Well, except when I was at work and the other 2 started new characters without me. Yeah, that part really wasn't together, but I'll let it slide. And here we are, at numero uno, the game that I will remember 2019 for. A game that I never thought would make it on this list, let alone be my number 1. And that game is Fire Emblem 3 Houses. Now, before we start talking about 3 Houses, let's go down memory lane and see my history with Fire Emblem. Wait. I don't have any history with Fire Emblem. So yeah, basically my experience with Fire Emblem is super minimal. I really liked Roy back in Smash Melee, but I had no idea what he was from. I honestly thought he was a Zelda character. And then I got a 3DS at launch, so I eventually got Fire Emblem the Sacred Stones through the Ambassador program. I launched the game, didn't quite understand it, so I closed it. Never be opened again. And then I jumped in the pool with my 3DS in my pocket, so bye-bye Ambassador program games. And most recently I bought Fire Emblem Fates, both Birthright and Conquest. But I only ever played the first few missions of Birthright. But I told myself I'd come back to finish both of them one day. And now it's been 1,641 days since I touched Fire Emblem Fates. So when they announced Fire Emblem for the Switch, based on my previous experience with the franchise, I expected to have no interest in it. But progressively they released more and more trailers, and I thought to myself, I said, Self, this might be the first Fire Emblem game for you. And it turns out, this game is freaking awesome. Right out of the gate, this game hits me with a difficult decision by making me choose between Edelgard, Claude, and Dimitri. All 3 amazing characters. It was basically like me choosing which starter Pokemon I wanted to run my campaign with. What made this more difficult than Pokemon is that I had no clue who I wanted to pick. Edelgard is cute and Claude is so cool, but in the end, I had to stay true to blue and pick my boy Dimitri. Now I may be biased on this in the long run, but I think the Blue Lions have the best cast of students between the 3 houses. Every one of my kids, Mercedes, Annette, Dedue, Ash, Sylvain, Ingrid, and even Felix, meant the world to me. In Fire Emblem 3 Houses, you take the role as a mercenary daughter of former legendary warrior Fargus, Gerald. And after you help a few students fight off a horde of bandits, Lady Palutena, Lady Rhea, asks you to become a professor at the Garrigmach Monastery Officers Academy. And not only are you responsible for improving your own skills and stats, but also those of each one of your students. You'll do this by talking to the students, completing tasks for them, fighting alongside them, finding their lost items, and even going on a date with Sylvain. There has to be some kind of rule against this though, right? And you can also focus on leveling up certain aspects of your character to try and convert members from other houses to yours. It's sort of like a medieval dating sim. No, I can't possibly talk to her. I'm too nervous. She'll hate me and never talk to me again. Now I sort of dropped the ball on this and didn't level myself up properly, so I ended up only recruiting Dorothea from the Black Eagles. But let's be real, who needs anyone else when you've got perfection right in front of you? Wait a minute. Oh, thank God. Where was I? Ah, yes, characters. 3 Houses has some of the best character personalities I've ever seen in a video game. There are so many opportunities for dialogue, interactions, and quips to introduce us to the students on an immensely intimate level. To start early in the game, the students are constantly beating themselves up for not being good enough, not doing enough damage, taking too long to kill an enemy. Many of them end up comparing themselves to either you or their parents or elders who are trained knights and soldiers. It really hits hard knowing these children want to become as strong as they possibly can, and that goal is just so far away from them. During downtime, you can have students interact with each other to increase their support level and give them special perks when they fight alongside each other. This allows for what has to be thousands of optional conversations between all the students. Some of the conversations are beyond wholesome, like 2 students who want to take extra time out of class to help each other train. Then there's some very brutal conversations, like a student from a royal family attacking a lower class student for his heritage. It was obviously very heartbreaking, but I love the depth of these characters. Then after a few well-fought battles, some of the students will pull you aside and ask if you can help them train to become a different class. And how am I supposed to say no when Ash walks up to me and wants to start swinging around a big hammer? Now, I'm not a parent or a teacher, but I have to imagine that watching these kids grow stronger, learn new abilities, and become adults is how it feels in actuality. Now moving on to the combat of Three Houses. As someone who rarely plays this type of turn-based RPG, I fell in love with the flow of battle. Battles in this genre of game are normally never a quick thing, but for me, they never outstayed their welcome. Even when I found myself losing a fight repeatedly, it just encouraged me to start fresh, rewind a few steps, and reanalyze my choices. Taking the time to decide where to place my troops, who to place next to who, and when to have them strike for the most damage. It was almost like chess, except I don't know how to play chess and all the pawns have big colorful anime hair. But without going into excruciating detail, there are a few things I like about the combat that I want to call out. You gain XP after each interaction of combat, rather than after completing the fight, and that just felt more progressive for me. You can also use combat arts that are super moves based on your character and the weapon you've equipped. And then there's gambit boosts, which allow increased damage depending on how many teammates you have in a given area. And eventually, you get to fight these giant creatures with multiple health bars. They're tough, but they're so cool. I could really go on for hours and hours about this game, talking about the details of the story, harping more about the character dialogue, and we didn't even talk about the stuff that happens in the later game. Oh my god, it gets so good! Just as a bit of a taste of how my campaign ended, a few of my students got married to one another. Sylvain and Mercedes, Ingrid and Sedith, and Dedu and Annette. And I even got married to one of the bravest, strongest, and most kind-hearted students in my class. Felix? When did we... who cares? The whole proposal thing was freaking adorable.
You're pretty slow on the uptake. Don't you know what this ring means? If you keep messing around, I'll... Fine. Listen carefully. I'm not going to say this more than once. I want you to be my wife. Please say yes. Let's get married and stay together until we die. I love you.
It took me roughly 90 hours to finish my first playthrough of Fire Emblem Three Houses, and I had some serious questions that needed to be answered, so I started the Black Eagle story and took a break. But I plan to come back to this amazing game for another 80 plus hours. For real this time. Maybe even 160 with the Golden Deer. Now what I've said today about Fire Emblem Three Houses or any of these games on this list are merely scratching the surface. Every one of these games has so much depth, entertainment value, and replayability, along with so much more. 2019 was a phenomenal year in gaming. It may not have been full of powerhouses like last year was, but I couldn't have asked for a better selection of games to have left an impression on me this year. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Nomenclature. Stick around for 2020. I have full intentions of really sticking to this series and bringing it out on some kind of regular basis. Next up, I do plan on doing my most anticipated games of 2020, and that's something you're not going to want to miss. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notifications every time a new episode of Nomenclature comes out. And while you're at it, how about you hit that big old thumbs up button down there, because all it does is help spread the video to more people. And honestly, I'm putting so much work into this, I want as many people to see it as possible. So help me out. Just, share with a friend, someone that might like it, or, anything. And lastly, make sure you leave a comment. Tell me what your game of the year was, or even give me your top 10. You don't have to do a whole, probably 30-40 minute video like I'm doing here, but hey, just, give me a list. I love seeing what you guys like for this year. Well, guys, that's all for me, and I will see you in 2020.